Hey everyone, welcome to the new podcast, The Griff Talk, where your hosts, me, Makani, and also a fellow Griffin, are going to talk about some pop culture things, music, film, also what's going on in the world and around us. I want this to be a space where we can have a conversation, open conversation with fellow Griffins, professors, and even staff. So, if you haven't seen me or you don't know who I am, I've been the digital storyteller for Campus Ministry for the past 2 years, and I've also been a part of the media production workshop. So, you may have seen my videos of Voices of Mission or a few videos on the Campus Ministry Instagram or social medias. So, for the first topic, we're going to talk about the 76ers and their stadium being built downtown. So I am a Philadelphian, have always been a Philadelphian. I love my city, I really do. And there's been a lot of conversations around Sherelle Parker making this decision despite everyone saying they don't want this, or a lot of people saying they don't want this. And I think my thoughts on it are that I need a little think a little bit. But I think my thoughts on the surrounding, I guess, social media and just like people talking about like, oh, like Sherelle Parker, like they're basically painting Sherelle Parker to be this bad guy, which in a sense I do understand because if you're a Philadelphian and you're telling your mayor that you don't want this stadium to be built because one is going to create like all of these traffic jams once it becomes built. There's going to be so many new construction sites. I think in a way there's like pros and cons to the situation. The pros are that we won't have to leave. We won't have to leave Philadelphia to have a new 76er stadium or just a stadium in general. But when you think about overall, every major city has a big stadium in the middle of their city. Like every major city. New York, Chicago, like they're everywhere. So I think like in a way we're not going to be doing anything different than what other states or cities are doing. But also, I feel like people are pinning their, I guess, anger about the situation on Sherelle Parker because it's easy to. I feel like it's easy to say that Sherelle Parker is the bad guy. Why? Because she's a black woman. If we're going to keep it real and we're going to be honest, like we have to look at the facts. I personally feel like if this was another mayor or someone who didn't look like Sherelle Parker, the bashing and the saying that she's a horrible mayor, all of that wouldn't have been like pinned on that person. On top of that, Sherelle Parker hasn't been mayor for long, and I feel like the city of Philadelphia is putting so much pressure on her to be like the best mayor in Philadelphia when it's like we haven't had good mayors before her. So I feel like she just has a lot to prove to people, and I think a lot of like the criticism that she's receiving, it's very harsh in my opinion. So yeah, I think that overall it's just easy for us to blame Sherelle Parker because she's a black woman, and that's pretty much what the internet and media does all the time. Anytime there's an issue or a problem and there's a black person at the forefront, we kind of, well, not we, but the media will like dogpile them and say like, oh, like she's horrible or that person is horrible, like they're making like these really bad decisions. And I feel like she has a lot on her plate in order for her to just like exist. I feel like Sherelle Parker hasn't been a mayor for that long for us to be criticizing her and saying that she's making these poor and bad decisions. And we also have to think that this plan was already in fruition. Like it was already a thing before she even became mayor. So I think that people are kind of blaming her when it's just like this plan was already a plan. She's just the person that like stepped in place and has to essentially follow through with the plan that was already being made. And I don't think that there's really anything that we can do. I understand that a lot of people in the city like didn't want it to happen, but where else will the 76er stadium go? There's no other place to put it. That is the only option and the best place that it can be put. I think that um, we need to stop holding people to a certain standard when they just got into that position or role. Give it time. Let's give Sherelle Parker some grace and see what actual changes she makes to Philadelphia before we just judge her off of a decision that was already made before she became mayor. for the next topic, I just wanted to talk about the Hurricane Helene. I know it hit like North Carolina, Florida, and Atlanta, and a lot of people have just been like so overwhelmingly shocked that it has hit all of these different states. And I just want to take a little like second to just give my thoughts and prayers to all the families who have lost their lives and also lost their homes. And yeah, so we're just gonna give like a little silence, 5 seconds. Okay. I don't really have, I guess, an opinion on this because how can I have an opinion on a natural disaster? I know that they said that in the news that there are going to be like two or three other storms coming. I just think overall, um, cities and states need to do better at making precautions for things that happen when it comes to natural disasters. I've seen a lot of bridges break, a lot of like schools and things being destroyed, and obviously it's a natural disaster, so it's not much that you can do to like prevent these things from happening. But I know that a lot of people like Florida who live in Florida, they're like, oh, well, like we're used to hurricanes. So like this is something that like we'll be able to get through. But you don't know until it happens. So I feel like the cities or the states need to do a better job at like helping people before it gets worse, like before they don't have a house or before they lose their car. I think that the state needs to bring more urgency to natural disasters, because I feel like sometimes when looking at natural disasters, even thinking about like Hurricane Katrina, a lot of people who lived in New Orleans were like, oh, like it's not going to be that bad, like we get hurricanes all the time. But like that's not the point. The point is we need to be safe whether it affects us badly or not. So that's really my take on the Hurricane Helene situation. Um, I hope that any other storms that come will, one, not be as bad as they were, as Hurricane Helene was. Um, and again, my thoughts and prayers to the families that lost their lives and their homes. And my last topic that I'm going to be talking about is the port workers going on strike. So I will say I'm not well versed on like port workers or anything, but I did hear on TikTok that essentially we're gonna not have any resources if this goes on for too long, if it goes on past a year. I did get some misinformation about saying that like we're not going to have any food, and like I think that kind of had me in a state of shock, like is the world about to end type of thing. But through further research, I learned that it's not going to happen as quickly as the internet is making it seem. And then also it won't be as like harsh as like we won't have any fresh food like within the first week. Like it's going to gradually happen. So I guess in a way that's a good thing, but also I personally think that the companies that are in charge of these port workers, they need to give them their money. They need to pay them what they're owed. Like these people work very hard. They work on ships. They have so many like physical, I guess, work that they're putting on their body. And then on top of that, they're also driving for hours on end. Like I think that people deserve a living wage, especially when they're doing jobs that require them to have so much bodily like work on their body. Like I don't know. I personally think that the companies need to pay these people what they owe so we can get back to normal business, and we don't have to be worried that we won't have fresh food in a year because people don't want to just companies don't want to pay these people $5 more. Like these are billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies that we're talking about that can't give these people a living wage. And I think that's so unfortunate. And I really hope that they can come to an agreement, because through like research, they're not asking for much. They're literally asking for just healthcare, better healthcare, and livable wages, like money to help them. They shouldn't have to be working two, three jobs if they're working for a billion-dollar company. And that's really my take on it. So yeah. And then I go back to this camera. So this was our first episode of the Griff Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I also hope that I will have a fellow guest soon. Hopefully, some of you guys will reach out. If you would like, you can reach out to the Griffin the Griffin CHC on Instagram and just shoot us a DM and let us know if you guys would like to co-host or if you have any questions.